Donald Trump's campaign would be much better off if the members of his campaign never opened their mouths, because as we know, whenever Donald Trump speaks, it backfires. The same goes for J.D. Vance, and the same today went for Elon Musk, who was caught on a recording saying something that really just is stabbing Donald Trump in the back, a shocking admission that Elon made that is devastating to the Trump campaign in the final closing days before this election, and we are going to get into all of that. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already, to hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way, and it really means the world to me. Now, as we know, Elon Musk has been one of the bigger surrogates for Donald Trump in his attempts to sway this election by buying votes, of course, endorsing Donald Trump and doing everything he can, but he's not necessarily a great politician. We've seen that play out in a couple of different ways, and we will in this shocking admission that he made. But before we get into any of that, I want to hear what Tim Walz had to say about Elon in this clip right here.
And that's not a joke. But look, I'm not going to waste all the time I'm in. I'm going to talk about his running mate. His running mate, Elon Musk. Seriously. Where is Senator Vance after he got asked the simplest question in the world at the debate? Did Donald Trump lose the 2020 election? And after 2 weeks, he finally said, no, he didn't. That's where he's been spending his time. But that's it. So, look, Elon's on that stage, jumping around, skipping like a dipshit on these things. You know it. Think about it. Think about that. That guy is literally the richest man in the world, spending millions of dollars to help Donald Trump buy an election. Now look, they're saying the quiet parts out loud now because Donald Trump has already promised that he would put Elon in charge of government regulations that oversee the businesses that Elon runs. That's a hell of a buy. He could spend billions to make more than 10 billion on the back end. So in other words, Donald Trump, in front of the eyes of the American public, is promising corruption. That's what he's promising you. And you know what? I don't believe he keeps many promises, but he'll keep that one. I'll guarantee you he'll keep that one.
A perfect call out by Governor Walz. He is exactly right. At this point, it seems like Elon might be closer to Donald Trump's running mate than even J.D. Vance is. And of course, we know, as we always say, that Donald Trump isn't running for president. He is running to escape prison and serve his billionaire friends like Elon Musk. But Elon doesn't just want giant tax cuts. He wants to be involved in our government in such a way to start to attack it for his own benefit. And Donald Trump has talked openly about that, how in the scariest way possible, he wants Elon Musk to be intimately involved in his administration. And he said some of that right here.
Fourth, at the suggestion of Elon Musk, who has given me his complete and total endorsement. That's nice. He's a smart guy. He knows what he's doing. He knows what he's doing. It's very, very much appreciated. I will create a Government Efficiency Commission tasked with conducting a complete financial and performance audit of the entire federal government and making recommendations for drastic reforms. We need to do it. Can't go on the way we are now. And Elon, because he's not very busy, has agreed to head that task force. Be interesting. If he has the time, that'd be a good one to do it, but he's agreed to do it. In 2022, fraud and improper payments alone cost taxpayers an estimated hundreds of billions of dollars. As the first order of business, this commission will develop an action plan to totally eliminate fraud and improper payments within 6 months. This will save trillions of dollars, trillions. It's massive. For the same service that you have right now, trillions of dollars is wasted and gone, and nobody knows where it went. Further taming inflation and bringing prices way down.
I cannot imagine a scarier possibility than a joint Elon Musk and Donald Trump presidency. And in an interview earlier this month, we saw Elon Musk say that because he can't run for president, it doesn't necessarily mean that he can't be president and be a shadow president. Elon Musk wants to use and abuse our government to serve himself and the rest of his rich friends. And as he said on Tucker Carlson's podcast, if Kamala Harris wins, he is effed because he won't be able to do that, won't be able to use our government and abuse it to push back against organized labor. He won't be able to write himself a giant tax cut, and he won't help Donald Trump screw over working people, which is exactly what he admitted in this devastating leaked audio right here.
We have to reduce spending to live within our means. Yeah, that necessarily involves some temporary hardship, but it will ensure long-term prosperity.
Elon is now saying the quiet part out loud, saying that Donald Trump's horrible economic plan will create a temporary hardship. And then he goes on to say that it'll lead to long-term prosperity, but we know who that prosperity is for. It's not for us, it's for the billionaires, the millionaires, the top 1%, while Donald Trump and Elon serve themselves and lay the bill on us. That's what the plan is. And the temporary hardship would come out of the cost of Donald Trump's ridiculous tariff plan that he doesn't even understand. Elon is advocating on behalf of this campaign, and even he knows that Donald Trump's plan to slash the government budget and throw tariffs all over the place would be horrifying. It would be awful for our economy, one that we have already seen Donald Trump wreck in the past. But of course, Elon is going to continue to go to bat for Donald Trump, even though he slips up a couple of times and admits the truth. But it's not just Elon who is advocating. Like I said, he is trying to buy votes, and he is using his control over Twitter to make sure that he is pushing as much Republican propaganda as possible. And that is what we are seeing more and more out of the media, the conservative bias that George Conway called out right here.
If newspapers never made endorsements, which some people believe they shouldn't, this is the time for them to make an exception, and these three news organizations are going the other way. And I have to say, it is very reminiscent of what has happened in countries where there have been authoritarian takeovers in the past. People don't want to incur the wrath of a vindictive government. And
Jeff Bezos argued yesterday in his op-ed that this is a step towards increasing trust in newspapers, saying now, according to the latest Gallup poll, newspapers are below Congress in trust.
What can I use? I don't want to use the word I want to use. This is C-SPAN, right? That's garbage, okay, to use milder word. Because he's owned this paper for a long time. He could have taken this position 2 years ago, 4 years ago, 6 years ago, okay? And he did not. And it just so happens that this man has business with the federal government that he doesn't want disturbed, and he has his own employees at his Blue Origin, or whatever the name of his, meeting with Donald Trump the day this gets into the newspaper. Okay, he has zero credibility. Okay, he has zero credibility on this. And you see it, I mean, essentially what you were seeing, I mean, it is like Lenin's adage that the capitalists will sell us the rope with which they will hang him. The same is true of fascists. And Donald Trump is, definitionally a fascist. And I hate to say that, and it's something I never thought I would come to that conclusion. But you look at the pages of history, and there's no question. And what people are doing, what these corporations are doing, is that they're putting, financial interests, momentary financial interests, above the interests of the public. Well, you buy a newspaper, you're providing a public service. It may be for profit, but you have the right, you have an obligation to provide truthful information and to give truthful guidance to people. And if you cannot take that heat, you should not own the newspaper. You should sell that newspaper.
I don't think that it is talked about nearly enough that the media has a conservative bias. Jeff Bezos, in an attempt to protect himself, not only just from the wrath of Donald Trump, but protecting himself and his wealth because he knows Kamala Harris won't write him a giant tax cut, he wouldn't let the Washington Post endorse Kamala Harris. We know that Fox is the biggest television network. We know that the biggest podcast, Tucker Carlson, Joe Rogan, Candace Owens, are all conservative-leaning. The media is controlled by Republicans. It is dominated by conservatives. And yet we see all the time people like Elon Musk complain and claim that George Soros is controlling the media and it's all run by the left, when that is incredibly not true. It's a bunch of billionaires putting their business interests before the actual truth. And of course, Elon isn't going to admit that. He's just going to lie on behalf of Donald Trump, and because he clearly doesn't really understand the media, but at least we got that one leak out of him. And speaking of leaks, we saw another devastating video and audio captured that is just horrible for the Trump campaign in the form of what Mike Johnson said right here.
There's a lot of talk. I mean, healthcare reform is going to be a big part of the agenda. When I say we're going to have a very aggressive first 100 days agenda, we got a lot of things still on the table. But healthcare, it's the secret. Yeah. It's the secret. Healthcare reform is not a secret. There's some really important ideas on the table, and we have a docs caucus, the physicians who serve in the House, and they've got a menu of options about this thick. And I think this is part of it, because if you take government bureaucrats out of the healthcare equation and you have doctor-patient relationship, it's better for everybody, more efficient, more effective. That's the free market. Trump's going to be for the free market. You heard a little sample of that last night. We want to take a blowtorch to the regulatory state, okay? Yeah. I mean, these agencies have been weaponized against the people, and it's crushing the free market. It's like a boot on the neck of job creators and entrepreneurs and risk takers. And so healthcare is one of the sectors, but we need this across the board, and Trump's going to go big. I mean, he's only going to have one more term, right? Can't run for re-election. Right. And so he's going to be thinking about legacy, and we're going to fix all these things. And,
no Obamacare?
No Obamacare. Yeah, the ACA is so deeply ingrained. We need massive reform to make this work, and we got a lot of ideas on how to do that.
Once again, they are admitting their plan and how devastating it would be to regular Americans, working people, that Donald Trump's tariff plan would really be a tax of almost $5,000 a year on working families, how Mike Johnson and his MAGA majority want to gut the ACA and replace it with what? Concepts of a plan? There aren't any concepts. They just want to take it out. That is it. Their plan is to gut, to attack, and to write big tax cuts that we bear the brunt of, that we pick up the bill for Elon Musk, for Jeff Bezos, for Donald Trump. And we can't let that happen. We can't. And we have to continue to talk about it every single day on this show. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button. You can leave a like on this video. And if you stuck around to the end, you can drop a blue heart in the comments. Until next time, I'll see you soon.